In this video, I'll be sharing with you a requested tutorial from my group on how to cut this stylish open shirt with back twist. So if this is something you like, kindly hit on the subscribe button. So let's dive right into today's video. So to start, I'll be cutting the shirt in a miniature form so that I can explain how to get the back. So the first thing you want to do is to mark out your button allowance, which I marked as BA, button allowance for short. So you can use within 2 inches to 2.5 for your button allowance. Next, I'll mark the measurement I'll be needing. I'll be using this 8 inches as my shoulder to bust, 12 inches as my shoulder to waist, and the other one as the length of my shirt. So go ahead to measure where you want your shirt to start, and it should be slightly towards the hip area. Now I'll mark my shoulder divided by 2 plus ½ inch because this shirt has a sleeve, and from that point I'll come down by 1 inch. For the neckline, I'll be using a basic neckline of 3 inches by 3. So I'll just be using this mark to serve as if it's my 3 inches basic neckline, and from the shoulder slant I'm going to connect it to the 3 inches neckline. Next is to find your chest line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So let's say this is what I have, but my actual chest line is 7 inches after calculating, because my bust is 33 divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So whatever you have on your shoulder, mark it on your chest line. My shoulder is 14 inches divided by 2. I have 7 plus half will give me 7.5. So go ahead to measure yours. Divide your armhole into 2 equal parts and come out by ½ inch. Now on your chest line, I'm going to mark the bust circumference divided by 4. So this measurement should start after your button allowance. I'll connect from the midpoint to the upper part, and from the bust circumference to the midpoint of the armhole. That is where I came in by ½ inch. Now the next step is to insert your measurement, but before doing that, I'll just go down by 3 inches for the depth. Remember, the neckline we are using for the front is 3 by 3 inches. I'm just using these marks here, this measurement, to serve as a guide to this pattern because I'm not using the actual measurement. So here's the chest line, bust line, and here is the waist like we marked, like I said earlier, and here is the blouse length. The next step you're going to take is to insert your measurement. On the bust, mark your bust circumference divided by 4. Now this shirt is a free shirt. You can go ahead and add as much as 2 inches, then add ½ inch for your sewing allowance. How free you want the shirt to be, go ahead to use that. Mark your waist circumference divided by 4, add your ease. Because I'm working on a pattern paper, I'm just using 1.5, then I'm adding ½ inch for sewing allowance. Also repeat that at your blouse length. Mark your hip circumference divided by 4, add your ease, and then add ½ inch for stitching allowance. So this totally depends on how free you want the shirt to be. You can go ahead to add your ease. Go ahead to connect from the bust to the waist, from the waist to the blouse length. Now if you notice your waist is going in this way, you can blend it out because this shirt is not supposed to have like a shape. So I'm just going to blend that part out a bit and then connect it to my shirt length. So after this, I'll just go ahead to cut out this pattern. So I'll just go ahead to cut this out, and after cutting it out, we're going to use this pattern to trace out the back pattern of the shirt. To do that, go ahead to fold in your button allowance and place on another pattern paper. Folded in my button allowance, and the next step I'll take is to place this, and I'll trace this all the way around. Also made mark on the waist on the blouse length, and I'll draw out a straight line at that point. After marking out, I'll go ahead to label out my pattern. Now let's alter the back pattern. I'll mark a basic neckline of 3 by 1 inch for the back, and I'll connect. So go ahead to take the measurement you have there. You'll be using it to cut the collar. So also measure the neckline for the front. You'll be needing it to cut the collar. For the front, you also need to measure together with your button allowance after you're done folding it in when you're sewing. So now I'll come down a bit from my waistline. You can come down like 1 inch and go in by half. Then connect it all the way to the neckline of your dress this way. Now from this point, I'm going to go ahead to cut this out before going ahead to cut out the lower part of the shirt. From this measurement, you can go down and pick any point, then go ahead to connect it back to your shirt length this way. Now, after connecting, I'm going to draw out a line that is 1 inch underneath this point. You can go ahead and come down by 2 inches. So I'm going to cut this out separately, right? I'm going to cut the front and the back separately. I'll be doing a slash and spread for the lower part of this shirt, while I'll be leaving the upper part that way, right? So go ahead and divide what you have there into several patterns. You can use 4 to 5 inches. Now I'll slash this and label it. Now what I will now do is to cut this out from here, right? And I'll go ahead to slash this open. So when slashing, please don't cut through it, just leave just little at the end to hold it together as one piece. I'll bring another pattern paper and I'll place underneath it and I'll trace this out. For the slash and spread, this totally depends on how full you want that part to be. You can use between half to 1.5 inches for a moderate spread at the back. So because I'm cutting this on a miniature size and I don't want to make the pattern paper too bulky or difficult for me to fold back to the normal shirt pattern, I will not be using much for this pattern. So I'll just go ahead and trace this point out. In front of this pattern, I'll be adding an addition of 1 to 1.5 inches in front. This will serve as a joining back allowance to the other side of the shirt. So I'll now trace this out. For this particular shirt pattern, I'm still going to cut this into two, one for the other side of the back. After that, I'll just go ahead and I will cut this out, right? So after cutting this out, I'll now remove this slash and spread. So what I'll do is turn it to the other side because I'm also cutting for the other side of the shirt. So after that, I'll just go ahead to trace out what I have to. So you have to cut out two sides because of the shirt has two sides, right? So after tracing this out, this is what I have. I'll just label the lower part to indicate that point, right? Now I'll bring back the upper part. So here we'll be pleating it and we'll be stitching it together and joining it to the upper part of this shirt. So for this upper part, I need to have two parts, right? But first, before going ahead to the shirt, you have to cut out two pieces. Then use your pattern, add an extension in front, 1 inch or ½ inch in front, which will serve as the joining allowance. So I'll go ahead to cut another piece for this side. So after cutting out, I have two pieces on each side for the back. Now go ahead to join the upper part with ½ inch. Join it together. After joining it, we are now going to join the back pattern, right? So this back pattern, you'll be joining it to the original part where you cut it out from. You'll be joining it completely because you'll be joining it to this other side. So what you now do is to go ahead and take this part facing towards this side. Now you can go ahead to pleat it, right, before joining it, or if you don't want to still pleat it, it is still okay. You're still going to achieve the same result. Also pleat this side, right, then you will join it together. So just like I said, if you don't want to pleat it, there are two ways of going about it. If you don't want to pleat it before joining, you can just go ahead to join it together as one piece. So by the time you add it to the side, that is join it to the side of this dress, you're still going to have that same twist effect at the back, right? So what I'll do is now to cross it over this way. Are you seeing the way I'm crossing it over? So what I'll now do, I'll join this edge together with ½ inch. Then I'll also join the other side with ½ inch. That is why I said if you like, you can go ahead to pleat the center, or you can leave it. By the time you cross it over this way, it will form a pleat by itself, like crossing it over to the other side of the pattern, right? It will fold. Like when you cross a fabric on each other, you're going to have like that pleat effect on it. So if you don't want to like pleat it and fold it, you're still going to have that same effect, right? So go ahead to join it on both sides of this pattern. So after joining it, this is what your back will be looking like, right? You now take the front and place and join. So I only cut one side of the front. If you cut out yours, you'll be having like two sides, and you go ahead to join it. So I'll use a tape to hold it down. So after holding it down, this is what I have. Now measure your neckline. Just like I said earlier, when you measure your neckline, you'll be cutting it on fold. So on fold, I have 5 inches, right, for this pattern. And what I'll do is I'm going to divide this into 2, and then I'll come up by ½ inch here. Go ahead to connect it to this point. Then for the height of the collar, I'll be using 1.5 inches and mark it to the end. So after this, go ahead to connect this point and then create like a little curve at this part of the pattern. Remember, you're cutting your collar on fold because you're going to attach it from the front to the back. That is, you'll be replacing the neckline at the back that you cut out and then join it to the other side of the neckline. I'll just be placing it on top of the neckline so that you see what it actually looks like. So when you place it, it will now cover up for that open back at the back of the neckline of this dress.